Mountainhead by Everything Everything. Um, so a band who twice have made my album of the year. Arc 2013, and then back in 2022 with Raw Data Feel, the uh, often mentioned AI album which they created, which I just felt, despite the kind of robotic sounding nature of it, was a very emotive record, and yeah, was everything at their best for me. So seeing Mountainhead come around, I felt I kind of had to, as such a recent album of the year for me. Um, and yeah, obviously with this one, there's another concept at play here, which was apparent with the opening single, which was Cold Reactor, where you see in the video they're all just with their hammers and tongs whacking three shades of what out of a mountain. And yeah, it's kind of the concept being that they're building this mountain, and almost like the futility of it, I suppose, which I suppose is a bit of an analogy for maybe where their heads are at in what we have here. So there was that one, Cold Reactor. Kind of said it didn't sort of do loads for me as a single. Then we had the end of the Contender and the Mad Stone. And then, what's remarkable actually looking on Spotify is how consistent they are at bringing out a 54-minute album. So the Raw Data Feel was 54. I might be getting the wrong, but I looked at them and it's by seconds. So maybe that's another little quirk, and knowing what they seem to be like and how they approach music making, that could very much be their actual ambition as well. So yeah, 54 minutes, it's a long old thing, but so was Raw Data Feel, and they really pulled it off there. Here again, 14 tracks. And yeah, ultimately it's not a Raw Data Feel for me. It wasn't one I ended up loving. I think there's some Everything albums which I think are okay, and I think this one probably falls into that category overall. And actually, it was Cold Reactor ended up being one of my top songs of the album in this collection. The Mad Stone, I know both of you were maybe not so keen on, was actually probably my favorite track of all. Reminded me of Goldfrapp's Lovely Head. And to me that was kind of vintage Everything Everything, and I didn't feel like there was enough of that throughout the album. But throughout there's some good ones. I'd say my main disappointment is towards the end, particularly City Song, which and I don't say this lightly, but it bored me. This one, because Everything are such an inventive band, and I just feel that one it just didn't go anywhere, and found it really disappointing. And then The Witness afterwards, again, what I will say for the album is that the lyrics and the kind of construction of it is the interesting thing about it, and I did enjoy sort of reading them as I went along. I just feel as the way they've conveyed this through the music doesn't quite live up to the concept and the lyrical efforts here. And yeah, you end up with one where I'd take a handful, which I'd go back to, but it's not one which I would put up there with their best. So yeah, but I have to go to the man who's wearing the Everything Everything hoodie, who I'm sure will provide, yes, perhaps a contrasting view. So, Karl, what did you make of Mountainhead?
Yeah, I mean, like you, Andrew. Yeah, Raw Data Feel, one of my favorite albums of 2022. It was actually my runner-up that year to Sims and Kendrick, which is, yeah, it's going to be hard to top those two records. But yeah, I think whilst I enjoyed everything's output up until Raw Data Feel, that was the album that kind of put them up a level for me. Which is interesting because I know the record that everyone turns to is actually Get to Heaven, which, although I really enjoyed that record, it wasn't quite the light bulb going off moment that, it was for a lot of people. I read this kind of discourse online, and like a lot of people kind of point to that as being their standout moment. But for me, I wouldn't I wouldn't put it on that pedestal myself. Like I know a lot of the diehards would, but like you, I think if anything, Arc, the record before that, was the one that pulled me in more at the time than Get to Heaven did. But yeah, I'd say Arc was probably my favorite at that point. But then, like you say, in terms of raw data feel, I think as well that record coming off the back of Reanimator, which for me is that's their weakest record for me. Raw Data Feel was just one that completely captivated me. Loved the direction that they took with it. Got those lush melodies, these rich moments of clarity, and amongst all the hilarious AI generated nonsense that's kind of going on in the lyrics at times. And yeah, just a lot of fun. I also ended up seeing them like live twice in the space of a week during August 2022, which I think is what kind of lifted it up for me. It kind of became the unofficial soundtrack to my summer, thanks to that kind of week. So yeah, I think like you, I had my trepidations going into this one, assuming I wouldn't like it as much as the predecessor. But unlike you, I think after hammering it this month, it's actually starting to creep up on it. I wouldn't say it's quite there yet, but I think for me, this is actually the perfect companion piece to Raw Data Feel, where that album was like a tapestry of ideas and sketches kind of focused in on our digital world. They followed it up with this, abstract concept record that looks at, humanity and humanity's relationship with nature and with each other. And they've done it through the lens of this, dystopian world centered around building this mountain. So I think for me, like conceptually and thematically, it's like, it's almost like you mentioned it being the same length, whether it's meant to be almost like a companion piece to Raw Data Feel, in the two kind of lenses that it's looking at things. But yeah, I think sonically it doesn't stray too far from what they crafted on Raw Data Feel. But I'd say the difference for me with this one is that I think this one's pulled together into a arguably more cohesive, ambitious, and in some ways a more fully realized project. Like I say, with the title almost alludes to Raw Data Feel, it being those collection of like great ideas that kind of came together, whereas this one seems like a more cohesive work to me. And yeah, I mean the songs themselves are just fantastic. That initial opening run, the end of The Contender and Cold Reactor, I feel like they're firm favourites already. Obviously I saw them at their album launch show here in Nottingham, and everyone, the album had only been out a week and everyone was already singing along to them like they've been part of the set for years. So yeah, just really instant, really catchy, classic everything songs, I'd say. But then the album tracks surrounding those two singles, Wild Guess, I think is a really wonderful opener. Buddy Come Over, and Are You Happy are probably like my two picks of the whole album. That brilliant, what's it, Elvis sitting dead on the toilet line in the chorus to Buddy Come Over. And the, it's a golden age, I'm wearing half your face refrain that comes in as well. Yeah, I just think it's fantastic. The others I really liked. TV Dog reminded me a bit of, Duet off Arc. Just with that quite minimalist string arrangement with the plucking strings. Reminded me a lot of that track. And then I think there's actually some great moments in that back end. Enter the Mirror, which they've since released as a single with some really cool puppetry in the video. I think that's even leapfrogged Cold Reactor for me as my favourite of the singles. I think it's incredible. Dagger's Edge with that great kind of riff going on. And yeah, for me, the more I've listened to it, I think there's no duff moments here. Even Mad Stone, which, as we mentioned, I didn't rate it as a single, but it's since really grown on me. And the other one that I found quite great in at first, Don't Ask Me to Beg. That one annoyed me initially, but now when it comes on, it's actually won me over as well. So, yeah, like you say, It's almost an hour long, so it's a bit of a mission to listen to it, but fully, it's not stopped me playing it quite relentlessly this much, which I think is a telling sign to how much I'm enjoying it. And I kind of mentioned, you know, when Wild Beast folded in 2018, it was like, for me, there was like the band that I was looking for to kind of fill that void, and I think everything have started to do that for me with those last couple of releases, Raw Data Feel and then this one. So yeah, for me, it's just another gem for their discography, and a band I find steadily kind of climbing up my list of favorites. So I imagine I might be in the minority there, but yeah, that's what I thought of it.
Yeah, so strong praise. And now we move to Kylie, who you had flagged before, not really a fan of this band. Did Mountainhead change anything for you?
I mean, Karl, you call it a mission. I call it a slog. No, the funny thing about everything is that I've listened to all their albums since Get to Heaven myself, because they're so critically acclaimed, and every time one of their records comes out, it's got great reviews, and I say, hey, this is going to be the one that really talks me into what they're about. But I just continually have never been able to get into these guys. And I know that, you both are big fans. So I wanted to come at it, from a different angle with this album, and, try to get into it more. And as I said before we started taping this, I don't think we've had a album on this podcast that I have enjoyed this little, that I've listened to so many times, because I really wanted to pull some stuff out of it. But, in the end, I just, Jonathan Higgs' voice, nothing personal, but it's not for me. He floats somewhere between like Dave Matthews and Roland Gift from Fine Young Cannibals, which, I'll take some Fine Young Cannibals, but it does not work for me. Whereas I think the reason I continue to check them out and listen to this album so much is that I, in the end, do really enjoy, especially this album, the synth pop of it all, the electronic elements, like, everyone outside of their drummer adding keyboard contributions. I think all three of those guys really put out some great stuff here, and the music itself, I do enjoy, and I'm with you. I think it does start out strong. I think Cold Reactor is it's one that, whether I wanted to or not, that a few times I've woken up and it's immediately stuck in my head. So obviously, you know, I can't deny that kind of earworm. I really do enjoy that one. And, I can complain about Jonathan Higgs, but Buddy Come Over, where I think he's probably at his most Jonathan Higgs, I actually really enjoy that song as well. But yeah, the back half, you call it a mission, and I just, as much as I try, cannot get into the back half of this record. And I think it's interesting too that you pointed out, Karl, Don't Ask Me to Beg, as one that's kind of been a grower for you, because that one, to me, um, the lyrics that you guys have enjoyed, I have to pull out. I think this is the worst lyric of the year so far that I've heard. And it's, if I'm going to be tomorrow's bacon, you deserve a Michelin star. And I think that's
Genius.
the worst lyric.
Genius.
this year has given us Think You the Shit Fart by Ice Spice. And I still think that was my least favorite lyric I've heard this year. But I was driving the first time I heard that, and I'm glad I, didn't swerve the car and get in a wreck or something like that. Cause I had to go back and rewind it and say, did he really just say what I thought he did? Anyway, I digress, but yeah, it's still continuing to, I don't know, what is this, 4 or 5 albums of theirs I've listened to, and it just does not fully click for me. So yeah, unfortunately, the one for me this month that wasn't all that.
as I say, 6 is a charm. So next time they bring one out, I'm sure it will
Yeah.
finally land.
And I'll listen to it.
Even more times with less rubbish.
Yeah.
So yeah, a mixed bag. Karl, very much a fan. I thought it was okay, and Kiley is more perhaps in the thumbs down mode there for Mountainhead.